You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife, the feminist who doesn't defend women. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You can't have failed to notice that there is quite the debate raging at present in relation to women's rights and what is seen as repeated attacks upon those rights. Women's rights are seen as being under attack. For example, Katja Iversen, president of Women Deliver, stated, "We're in a time of pushback against women's rights all over the world, but we stand up and we stand strong. We have the power of many and of justice, and we will not go backwards." Kate Gilmore, United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, state, "They do hunt down the truth-tellers. They bar the law-loving lawyers. They threaten the life-giving, life-protecting midwife, the clinically loyal doctor. And they may even again torch every buck, char every page of reason, and turn every loving and tolerant word into ash. They can't and will not command our silence. We will speak of the unspeakable. We will insist those stories be told, for we are offended, so we will be offensive." Tina Chen, lawyer, Time's Up Legal Defense Fund in the United States. "Here I am from the United States, where we've just seen this state-by-state attack on what is essentially a fundamental constitutional right for women, which is the ability to make decisions for themselves around their bodies. Progress which we think we have made is under attack, and is just a lesson to all of us that nothing is a given, nothing is certain, and you must be constantly vigilant around things that are important." Ala Murabit, the UN High-Level Commissioner for Health and Economic Growth, "The hard-fought progress on women's rights is under attack. We must now stand firm in our values to fight for gender equality. We need to end the systemic violent exclusion of women from power and draw a red line around non-debatable issues. More importantly, the control of women over their own bodies." There are many areas where women's rights are seen as being under attack. And one particular area of concern for feminists and women, of course, is in relation to transgender activism that has taken place. Internationally, feminists have spoken out, raising concerns about many issues relating to transgenderism, such as Germaine Greer and Sheila Jeffreys, notable feminists, who have been labelled trans-exclusionary radical feminists, or TERFs, and they've been subjected to boycotts, abuse and death threats. For example, in September 2017, a feminist debate about transgender issues in Hyde Park in the United Kingdom was interrupted by trans activists who were reported to have harassed attendees and assaulted a woman attempting to film them. In the same month, Bath Spa University refused funding to psychotherapist James Caspian for a study about people who regret gender reassignment surgery. Caspian noted this is worrying, as a university exists to encourage discussion, research, dissent even, to challenge ideas that are out of date or not particularly useful. All of this has arguably impeded further open and critical discussion of trans activism. There are a variety of areas that feminists see as threatened by this activism. The fact of there being the loss of women's safe spaces, traditionally sex-segregated spaces such as bathrooms, changing rooms, hospital wards, women's refuges, women's health centres, courthouse safe rooms, women's libraries and homeless shelters, the loss of women-only scholarships, the concept of what a woman is being eroded, women-specific clothing being under threat. For instance, only recently we saw Dylan Mulvaney, a man who identifies as what seems to be a teenage girl, being sponsored or as a spokesperson for Nike, and thereon wearing a sports bra as a flat-chested male. How that's going to assist a woman who needs a sports bra causes the mind to boggle, and therefore suggests another area of where women's needs and rights are under threat. There's the safety of women's prisons, of course, which is something which had recently received considerable news coverage as a consequence of, I think it was Martin Ponting, who identified as Jessica Winfield, and he was transferred to a female prison in Scotland, despite still having a penis intact, and he was segregated after making inappropriate advances to female prisoners. Another example was in Australia by Paul or Paula Denyer, a serial killer who in 1993 was convicted of murdering 3 women in that year. Denyer was sort of transferred to a women's prison on the basis that he's now a woman and has defied court orders not to wear female clothing and cosmetics. There's issues about the potential for it skewing crime statistics. Because most crime is committed by men, there is a concern that the attribution to women of violent crimes committed by men who identify as women has resulted in the skewing of statistics. A Swedish study found that sex reassigned male to female individuals had a higher risk for all criminal convictions than female controls. And there's the impact on women's participation in sport and culture. Indeed, as a consequence of this, numerous athletes have spoken out about transgender females in women's sports. Brett Favre, the former Super Bowl winning Packers quarterback, spoke out about the issue, stating, "It's a man competing as a woman. That's unfair," he said in a podcast. His comments were in reaction to the New Zealand Olympic Committee's announcement that Laurel Hubbard, a transgender female weightlifter, would compete in the Tokyo Olympics. Martina Navratilova, the Czech-American former tennis star, first voiced her opposition to transgender women competing with biological women in 2019. She stated, "It's insane and it's cheating. I'm happy to address a transgender woman in whatever form she prefers, but I would not be happy to compete against her. It wouldn't be fair," she wrote in an op-ed. Navratilova won 59 Grand Slam tennis titles, including a record 9 Wimbledon single wins. Paula Radcliffe, the retired long-distance runner, supported Navratilova's criticisms of policies. She stated, "If you are born and grow up male, you cannot be allowed to compete in female sports simply because you identify as female. It makes a mockery of the definitions of male and female sports categories." Kelly Holmes, the former Olympic runner, stated, "Anyone can live how they want to live, but let women have their rights too." She called trans athletes topping biological women a bloody joke in a tweet. Sharon Davis, the former Olympic swimmer, joined a chorus of voices in 2019 when she reacted to the rule change of the International Olympic Committee to allow transgender athletes to compete in international events. If you just ignore the potential benefit, women, XX-born females, will not be able to win any of their medals, any of the sports scholarships, any of their profile opportunities to be able to get a platform. How is that fair? We are in a society where 50% of us are women. Chelsea Mitchell, who was at the top of the Connecticut high school track circuit in 2020, but said that transgender competitors made the track one-sided. She stated, "I was the fastest girl in Connecticut, but transgender athletes made it an unfair fight," she wrote in a USA Today op-ed. Many people there, famous athletes, speaking out against the inclusion and the erosion of those particular areas. Sarah Ditum, a feminist, wrote in The Economist about how trans rights should not come at the cost of women's fragile gains. She stated trans people face substantial injustices, most significantly violence, perpetrated like all violence largely by men, and discrimination. The process of applying for a gender recognition certificate is intrusive and burdensome for many, and there are frustrating waiting lists for medical transition which are compounded when doctors appear unsympathetic or obstructive. Yet rather than confront male violence or lobby the medical system, the focus of trans activism has overwhelmingly been the feminist movement, spaces and services designed for women, and the meaning of the word woman. She has spoken out in her essay. And of course, perhaps most famously of all, is J.K. Rowling, who attracted extensive criticism for a series of comments voicing concerns about how trans issues would affect women's rights. In an essay on her website in 2020, she wrote, "When you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside." Her position, of course, had been interpreted by some as transphobic, leading to calls for a boycott of the Harry Potter franchise. But many actors came to her defence. Ralph Fiennes, who played Lord Voldemort, said that the abuse she received was disgusting and appalling. Rowling has denied being transphobic, saying she respects every trans person's right to live any way she feels authentic and comfortable to them, and she wants trans people to be free from discrimination and abuse. Eddie Izzard and Helena Bonham Carter have also said they do not consider her views to be transphobic, but reflective of her own experience of abuse. Irrespective, therefore, of where you might stand on this whole debate, and it isn't a question of who's right and who's wrong in relation to this debate about trans, but the fact is that many women and feminists see that women's issues are being adversely affected by this. And there is a vociferous debate that's raging, one which many women, and specifically feminists, deem one where it's important for them to defend women's rights. But what's a feminist? Well, the definition is an advocate of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes, a person who supports feminism. We all know that Harry's wife has repeatedly described herself as a strong, independent feminist, that she stands up to empower women and young girls, that she's there to support the rights of women. Yet, where is her protest to protect these female spaces? Where's her support for female athletes? Where's her highlighting issues about safety, for instance, in women's prisons? Where perhaps is her essay on the subject? In The Economist, they had a range of views advanced with various essays talking about the issue. Christina Harrison did an essay, "A System of Gender Self-Identification Would Put Women at Risk." Charlie Kiss stated, "The idea that trans men or lesbians in denial is demeaning and wrong." Pippa Fleming stated, "The gender identity movement undermines lesbians." Emily Brothers stated, "Making transitioning simpler would not usurp the rights of women." James Kirkup wrote, "I'm neither trans nor a woman. Can I write about the issues they face?" Kathleen Stock, "Changing the concept of woman will cause unintended harms." Adam Smith, "The struggle for trans rights has parallels to that for gay rights." A number of essays, thoughtful, incisive, from different sides of the debate. But where was Harry's wife in all of this? She's got plenty of time on her hands, hasn't she? She only dedicates an hour a week to Archwell, and given that she's apparently such a prolific feminist, hanging out with another feminist, Gloria Steinem, one would have thought that she would have waded into the debate. But why is she silent? And notably so. Well, the fact is, as a narcissist, she's only a feminist in self-description only and when it suits her. She's only a feminist when her narcissism deems that there's a gain to be obtained. And the fact is, she lacks the intellectual prowess or genuine belief to wade into this debate on either side. And as a feminist, one would expect her to be there supporting the women's rights and women's spaces, but she doesn't, because she doesn't truly believe in the cause, and moreover, her wokeism prevents her from joining the debate for fear of losing control over a section of her supporters that would identify with trans support. The fact is, she holds herself out as a feminist, yet she is a woman who regularly fails to defend women. Indeed, as I've explained on many times before, she's engaged in behaviour which completely flies in the face of what feminism is about. Her reliance upon men to enable her to get anywhere in life. Her reliance upon her father. Her reliance upon her first or second husband, depending upon who you ask. Her reliance more lately upon Prince Harry. The fact is that she does not defend feminists. She does not defend women because her narcissism deems that there's nothing to be gained in doing so, and therefore she does not, and she remains silent. Harry's wife, therefore, is a feminist who doesn't actually defend women. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.